I'm here at the Phi Center in Jojage, Montreal. So thank you for joining us for this event. We're really excited to open up this conversation. Of course, there are some, let's say, social media etiquette that we just want to cover. If you've got questions and if you've got comments, absolutely, we want you to drop that in the chat. And Hannah Che will curate that for us. Um, Already started. Layla, our guest today, says she's excited for this. We all are really excited for this as well. And so we will take some time after the conversation to take your questions. But of course, we might actually engage with some of your comments as they come in live. So feel free to just engage in this. This is an open conversation. And we hope that we all learn and feel blessed by this experience. So, Layla, I'm going to invite you up on the screen. There she is. Layla's in LA, so it's really, really early for her today. Thank you so much for joining us. And let me just make this all official for folks who may not know you, although I understand that many, many Montrealers and Quebecers follow you already. But Lalah Delia is a best-selling author of Vibrate Higher Daily, Live Your Power. So that's a great book and a great tool that people can find and use right now. But she's also a wellness educator and spiritual practitioner and the founder of the online school vibratehigherdaily.com. So let's welcome Lalah Delia once again.
Thank you so much, Nantali. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited. Yes, I'm so excited for this conversation. And I'm sending love to Montreal and everywhere else that this will reverberate to. I'm excited to be in community and space, safe, sacred space together.
I actually want to ask you right off the bat, why did you agree to do this event in Montreal? I mean, this is a small community of Black folk with a lot of creative-minded people. Never Was Average, the Black History Month Roundtable, really trying to bring a new offer to the community here. And here you are, someone who's quite high profile in many ways, agreeing to participate in this event here in Montreal. Why did you want to be a part of it?
I did it because we are one, even though, we definitely have the diaspora, we are one. And there's this thing called the morphic field. So Black and BIPOC people healing in one area can affect Black and BIPOC people healing in another area. And so it's so important for us to unify and do the work together, even if we are, there's oceans between us, land between us. And it's important to spread the work. Like the work is just not for my community in the States. And I've been just warmly inspired and spiritually nudged even to continue to go further and further and further to continue to expand my work in the world and my offerings. And so it was an absolute yes. I absolutely adore Never Was Average, the work that they are doing, the creative work that they're doing, and just to get behind young Black people who are inspired to change and be thought leaders is important to me. And of course, I'm honored to be able to sit with you in your own right. My goodness, so you're legendary in your own right.
I'm so happy we connected.
I'm so happy too. Yes, absolutely.
We for the audience, a little behind the scenes, Layla and I had a chat about a day ago, and we just sort of connected on the fact that we're probably the same generation, and we rock the same hoops. So we were excited about the fact that our fashion is in line.
Totally true. That's important.
How has Black History Month been for you? Is this an important month for you? Do you value this month?
Yeah, it is. I definitely am from the camp of Black history is every single day, because we're using all the inventions from Black inventors. So we're actually practicing it every day. We're benefiting from it every day. But I do appreciate there being a highlight, like a month that is highlighted specifically for us, even though we still have a long way to go as far as systemically really putting Black people in the conversation, whether it's history, invention, wellness, all the things. We need to move beyond just 1 month, but I am grateful. I practice gratitude, right? So I'm just like, I'm grateful for this, and I'm going
Mm,
to use the best of it. I've been busy this month speaking and sharing for Black History Month, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful that it's here, and I know that the way gratitude works is the more that you're grateful, the more that it magnetizes to you and around you. So I love that we're being grateful, but we're also asking for a bigger conversation, a bigger narrative.
right, right. And in many ways, some of us are grateful for good health. This past year has been such a challenging year, right?
Absolutely.
Um, the whole world, the whole world is living through this pandemic, varying
Mm-hmm.
degrees of it. And I just wonder, what's your initial take on the vibrations of the world right now?
Yeah. The world has been forced to break out of its container that was so safe, so institutionalized, so marginalized even, and it's like allowing us to break out of that. In a lot of ways, the playing fields were evened, and everyone's at home. Everyone's having to figure it out, and everyone did feel some type of okay, what is going to happen now? And it took us a while to climatize to this new atmosphere that we were just thrust into. But it was good for us. Like I definitely see the good coming out of this because now you have a little more people leaning in, like, okay, I get it. Because what most of America and most of the world, matter of fact, is experiencing is what BIPOC communities have experienced very often: challenge, setback, barriers, not knowing how we're going to figure it out, not having all the resources.
And
And
anyone who might feel outside of the mainstream, I think about people living with disabilities too. There's a lot
yeah,
of stuff about
yep,
isolation right now. Like, I can't be isolated. Meanwhile, people who live with a handicap, that
yeah,
this is an everyday living for them, regardless of pandemic, right?
it is absolutely right. And it's that awareness that lets you just tap into your humanity. And even this altruistic view of like, okay, people really are suffering beyond the pandemic. Like this was just lifestyle for some people. Because some people, again, we know that don't come from privilege. And so in order to, you with your privilege to be set in the same playing field that a lot of us are, it's humbling. And that humbleness sometimes is what's needed for transformation to take place and even a new awareness. And it looks like that's happening. And a lot of times, we don't want to learn the hard way, but we've lived in a nation, in a world that has ignored the signs, the loud signs and messaging for a long time. And so
Right.
I would say in the midst of the pandemic, which caused a lot of trauma and pain, like we have to acknowledge that, but at the same time, what's the gift? What's the gift out of the chaos that we can take forward with us? And that's how we can come out of this more well and healed.
Well, you're talking about trauma and pain, and I want to go to a quote that's on your site, um, that speaks specifically about the mission of the work that you're trying to do. But before we even get to the quote, there might be some folks who are less familiar with the vocabulary and the culture and the ideas. So can you just give us your definition of vibrating, or vibrations, and especially what it means to vibrate higher?
Yes, yes. Well, this is the area where I geek out in. So, absolutely. So vibration is what's all around you. It's feeling the atmosphere around you. Anything that you see with your eye, as far as you can see, is made up of vibration. It holds a vibration. You are vibration, and scientifically, medically speaking, if you take a microscope and zoom into yourself on an atomic level, you are just energy vibrating at a particular frequency. When you listen to music, that those are sound waves. Sound waves are made up of vibration. So everything in the known light is vibration. Everything in the known universe and beyond it is made up of vibration. So this is this undercurrent that is controlling and governing your life. And when you understand what this is, because whether you realize it or not, you're working with it, you've been working with it, and you've been exposed to it, and you're continually affected by it and affecting it for other people and yourself. So it's just a matter of being so in tune and intentional now with this energy that is workable. It's not stagnant. We can raise it. Healing happens when we vibrate higher. Higher thoughts, joy, wellness happens when we vibrate higher. Healing foods vibrate higher. Junk processed foods vibrate lower. Negative thoughts are lower, and so with that lower or higher energy comes a state of being, in the world that also magnetizes to you more of itself. So it's important to understand, if I vibrate higher, I am attracting more high vibrations in my life. If I'm in some type of cycle and loop or spiral into lower vibrations, it's going to continue to go and attract more of that into my life. So just knowing, like, wait a minute, and this is the awakening, the ascension, I can have more of a sovereign say in my life, the direction my life is going, and not just live mundane, and just going with the flow, but you could actually affect the flow.
And it's so interesting the way you describe that, because what I hear is it's like an evolution of so many things that we actually have heard over time in other phrases. Like when you're saying attracting the same kind of vibrations, I'm thinking of my Caribbean grandmother who says, birds of a feather flock together. So
Oh, totally.
depending
Yep.
on what kind of bird you are,
Yeah. Like every
your
generation has
flock
their
is going to be
own
something else.
say. Yeah, totally. I love it. I love it. No, that's true.
Um, so I am going to get to that quote on the site, and it says, "At many times I thought my life was too far gone to mend." So I want to break that down for a sec and get you to talk a bit about, what did you mean by your life was too far gone?
Wow. Yeah, that was for many years. I had that thought of the patterns that I was seeing play out in my life, the cycles, the relationships that kept coming in. It would be a different person, different name, but same energy. And my own stuff, you know what I mean? Beyond what I was experiencing in toxic, negative relationships, trauma bonds, peer bonds that were lower vibrational. It was even my stuff that I started to get sick and tired of, but did not know how to break those patterns, those habits, the victim mentality that I had for so long, and rightfully speaking so, because I had a lot go on, trauma wise in my life. I went through. I was sexually abused by a trusted caregiver. I was raped in middle school. There was attempted abduction twice when I was living on my own at 21 from a stalker. And then in my early 20s, I was in a relationship of domestic violence that was very traumatic, very violent. So all of this, and then plus the messaging just of growing up in South Central LA, it was a hardcore environment called the war zone. So it was just a lot of messaging
Mm.
that all of that compiled and continually growing on a young woman who did not know how to mend, who did not know how to even speak out about how I was feeling. It was causing more and more um, heaviness on my spirit, on my energy field. And I didn't know what to do with that other than, okay, this is just life. And I just thought, this is it. Like, I'll do the best I can with this life. And it wasn't until I started to just reach complete rock bottom. And often we can have a rock bottom at different parts in our life. But when I say I mean complete rock bottom, when I say that, it's suicidal ideation. And I woke up 3 days later,
Mm.
and I was like, you can't get any lower than that. I just didn't know how I was going to heal from there. I had healed even from like this really traumatic physical illness. And even after that, I thought I was going to have a new leash on life. And for a quick moment, I did, but then I reverted right back. So it was that reverting right back. I was like, well, I guess it doesn't work. But it wasn't until I just said, I surrender. I was like, God, if you're there, if you're really, really there, use my life. And I did the whole, and I used to think this always sounds cliche when I would see it in interviews or movies, but I tried it. I was like, I'm gonna try that. I was like, use my life. And if you use my life, I will be devoted to you. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Just fix me,
Mm.
change me.
Do
And
you
that's
think
where it all
do you
started.
think you went do you think you went in that direction to God because of a foundation already that you had in spirituality? I know that your father was a practicing Buddhist, and I'm just thinking of, how does it work for someone who may not think to turn to God necessarily, or a God,
Yeah.
or a spiritual space if they are at rock bottom?
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I talk in my book about, my parents planting seeds. My grandmothers were church elders, church mothers. My mother was a pregnancy crisis counselor. So I had, and her particular organization was Christian based. So I had a lot of the messaging, and I grew up in the Christian church, in the Buddhist community, um, with my father when we would practice and hold sanghas and go to sanghas. And then it was sticking in me, but you go rebel as a young child because I had to go soul search on my own. That's what we're here for. But those seeds did, they were germinating and continued to take root and blossom in their own time. And for me, it was just so happened like it took my dark night of the soul for those to really come into full manifestation where I was like, wait a minute, I'm turning back to the scriptures I used to read to my grandmother because she couldn't read anymore. I was remembering all these things, those church songs that I used to just sing on autopilot as a child, a teen. Everything. When I got rock bottom,
Same.
it hit different. Like those prayers, those words,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
songs, they hit different when I was at my rock bottom.
Psalm 23.
Oh, come on. That's it. Psalm
Lord is
23
my
hit different.
shepherd. That's like a solid.
Solid. And that was my grandmother Layla. That was her favorite passage I used to read to her. That's, yeah, amazing. Yeah. So, yeah, it definitely helps. And it allowed me to Sankofa back to my own beginnings, and the spiritual foundation that was embedded in me, that took a while to mature. And it doesn't take trauma for everyone to mature. But I would say,
Mm.
look towards a higher power than yourself because we are energy beings, which means we're a conduit. And there's something higher that charges us. And for you, find what that is for you. For me, it's my spiritual walk, my spiritual faith. Yeah,
And but Layla, find what that is for you, but make sure it's positive, because I think we already
that's it. Please
do
make sure.
turn to certain things, right? Yeah, like we turn to certain things that we define as higher.
Mm,
Sometimes they can be substance, objects, or
yeah,
even people. So
yeah,
if you could speak to that a little bit in terms of what we have to find,
yeah.
that's higher, that can actually help you heal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important because I talk in my book about being the chemist of your own life. And this is when you go on the exploration and the observation practice of knowing what works for you. What is high vibrational for you may not be high vibrational for me. So cause sometimes we'll tend to judge our path according to others. Like, well, they're doing this and they're excelling and they're beautiful and they don't have any problems, so to speak. But it's just that you have to find your own chemistry based on everything you've been through, based on what you have access to, based on your own purpose, your higher purpose, your path. There is a formula that's going to work for you. And being the chemist of your life means you don't take it personal when things don't work. You don't think it's strange when it's not working for you and it's working for everyone else, or even when something has worked for you and it's no longer working. When the pandemic started, a lot of people were experiencing like, wow, I need a deeper type of self-care now. I need to change my routine now. And that's what it's supposed to be because if you do the same thing all throughout your life, it's maybe showing that there's not enough sign of growth. And so we always want to make
Mm.
our practices, our path reach us where we are currently. And that's the mindfulness piece. And again, like you'll know, like I say in the book, certain compounds that mix together create toxins and poisons, and certain compounds together create solutions and remedies. So it's just a matter of finding those high vibrational things that allow you to feel more alive, that give you more sense of inspiration, encouragement, and there'll be some visible signs of growth, healing, of transformation. That's all. And this goes with people and relationships as well. Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the second part of that quote that's on your site. So you started off by saying it many times I thought my life was too far gone to mend. And then you write, I now realize and honor it was all part of a higher plan, process, and a path of getting me here now. I'm so glad I kept fighting for mental liberation, emotional healing, self-empowerment, and higher vibrations.
Mm.
Lalah, how do we resist the temptation to give up the fight?
Yeah, this is what I call the liminal space, and the liminal space that I teach about is the liminal space is like that gap, that bridge. It's not where you used to be, and it's not where you're headed. It's that in between space, and that in between space is where most people give up. It's what really sets the difference when you even look at in the professional world, from amateurs to professionals. The professionals in any industry in the liminal space, they don't let failure stop them. They keep going. So in the wellness space, you take that same concept. Where I would usually want to give up, I'm going to keep going. And if you keep going, the road keeps expanding. That the teachers keep showing up a little more, and just don't think it's strange if failure shows up. Like, it's okay. This is, I say, I always say Earth School, the university of life, and it's okay to make failures. Wellness doesn't look perfect. It's not supposed to look perfect. Neither is beauty, and everything is flawed, even your path and your learning path. But give yourself time and space in that liminal space to understand that even though that's going to be the toughest part, it's where most of the transformation happens. It's where most of the magic happens. And matter of fact, the dark night of the soul is there. And the dark night of the soul is where you feel like you're at your rock bottom, you're at an all-time low, you can't see your way out. It's like the dark night, like you can't see vision-wise, you can't see ahead of you. And a lot of things come, and maybe it's traumatic. Maybe it's causing you to change your complete life around, but just know to keep going forward, don't stop. And it's come for that very reason, to shake you out of this mundane life that you've been living. And growth, sometimes it causes expansion, and that expansion is what we're feeling when we want to quit. When we're impatient, it's the growth process happening that we're not aware of. Even when we're like feel like, oh, I'm reverting back. No, that's still the growth process. It's still the labors
That's
of
still the
growing.
yeah.
No, so just keep going, and when you keep going, you'll start to hit different milestones. But yeah, definitely don't give up in that liminal space.
Well, I wanted to just get a little bit very specific to one of your ideas right now that you talk about in the book, and
Mm.
you call it the new timeline.
Yeah.
So, can you speak a bit about that? What is the new timeline and how does it work?
Yeah. So this is speaking in metaphysics, even quantum physics, where your timeline is your reality. It's another way of saying your reality. But if you think about a timeline, if you grafted this out on a sheet of paper, within your timeline, you would know certain periods of like, this is how I looked, this is how I acted, these were my friends, these are the things I was into. So you're already working with this concept of timelines, whether you use the term or not, whether you're even aware of the term or not. So what you did on your timeline when you were in middle school is definitely not who you are now. So you're on a different timeline. So if we are intentionally focused now on, because I'm on a new timeline, there's different behavior, there's different type of things I'm looking to attract, there's boundaries that go with this timeline. Maybe there's even a certain way I dress now, that I adorn myself different, that I'm free to be a new sovereign being. And that's what the new timeline means, that anything that happened in the past is not going to hold me now to my current timeline. And the way you'll know if you're on a high vibrational timeline, because you can be on a low vibrational timeline, but you want to signal a new higher timeline, meaning that the healing work that I'm doing, maybe the work I want to do in the world, the creative offerings, they're on the high timeline. So just make sure that everything that you do is supporting you, showing up as that conduit, right? That helps you. I always say, you're the conduit can do it. So how do you become the conduit that can do it? And you do this by charging
Mhm.
yourself, by living well, by setting healthy boundaries that really protects you as the conduit. Protect yourself as the vessel, as the person healing, as a person seeking the new relationship. Because if you allow the old timeline in, which looks like old patterns that you're looking to break, even thoughts, behaviors, triggers, those are all on the new timeline. And the way you don't personalize it is just to say, oh, okay, you'll think you slipped up. No, it's just the old timeline. Let me reclimatize to my new timeline. And then sometimes, people from an old timeline can reach out to us on a new timeline and try to get us to come back. And we just have to be careful of that. That's boundaries. Like definitely hold space and like compassion for them, but do not allow people to take you back. Like keep moving forward in a direction. Like it's almost like reaching your hand up to bring someone up, and whether they choose to stay there or not once they have exchanged with you is up to them. But you don't want to lower to their vibration. And then that's how we
Oh, so
find,
that's interesting the way
yeah,
how you put that, because in my mind I was also thinking, do we have the responsibility to tell those people from our old timeline, or that person from the old timeline, or someone who's coming with low vibrations,
yeah,
do we have that responsibility to say to them, hey, I'm working towards a higher vibration right now, so see you later? But you said you need to have compassion for them.
yeah, yeah. Ultimately, like you get the most benefit when you are able to hold compassion for people, because if not, we it can tend to get real sticky right there, because we can get bitter. We can ego can start to take over, and we think that we're better than someone. And it's the subtle things of the ego, right? That, oh, I'm not going to be around you because you're not vibrating higher. And it's not that. It's, I won't be around because I have to set healthy boundaries for myself. So there's a difference. And it's just the languaging, work finding your languaging, and then keeping it real with yourself if you really do feel a way around certain people, and then honoring that. Thank you for the vision, thank you for the clarity, for the insight, and then knowing how to bless people forward. Like, I don't wish you harm, I wish you healing. And sometimes I talk in the book that, sometimes relationships just need a little space and people to heal and vibrate higher, and they come back together stronger. And then sometimes people
Mhm.
will never re-enter your energy field because you have completely just vibrated so higher that it has just self-destructed like it was supposed to. And some people
Yeah.
fall from your life like a leaf falling from a tree. They just let go. And you just have to honor when they leave your life that something better is coming in the place, and this is the preparation for it. So rejection also is redirection. And so remember that too. If someone leaves your life, you kind of feel away. But just allow people to journey, and just like, we have to have that space. We can't grow with everyone continuously in our lives. And just know that solitude is sacred. So put yourself in a desert season if you have to break things off of you. That's the best way to break addictions and friendships and all kind of things off of you, is to spend time in solitude and really know that I'm okay in the solitude time.
Really know that I'm okay in the solitude, but so many people, I mean, at this point, anybody who has the internet and and then obviously is on social media, even
Yeah.
in solitude, pick up the phone
Yeah.
and turn to that other timeline um, to get
The other timeline.
information, but also to get guidance. And I was thinking about this around wellness, and I find it so interesting that right now, um, wellness has kind of become an industry. It's kind of a part of the capitalist scheme, right? And so you turn to your timeline, you turn to your social media feeds, and you're seeing all kinds of information and posts and
Yeah.
products
Yeah.
and people who claim to be experts, um, now selling you something.
Yeah.
It feels like such a contradiction to what the goal is.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we just, and this is why mindfulness is so important on your journey. And a lot of concepts like this very is like a multidisciplinary type of way of living, because you have to have mindfulness. You want to have healthy eating. You want to have healthy boundaries. You want to have spiritual practice. So to understand that your wellness journey is going to take, you to have awareness and be literate in like mindfulness and energy. Be mindfulness in what you're seeing, what's being presented to you when you're on the algorithm, because you will be presented with, you need this candle is going to change your life, or this yoga mat is like biomagnetic and it's going to like raise your vibration, higher than we've ever charted in history. Like all the things that are being sold to you, we have to understand that capitalists definitely are viewing, like, there are think tanks, and they look at what industries are really doing best right now. whether it's whatever it is. And right now it is the wellness industry because the world is really healing. And I know I'm happy about it. I love seeing it everywhere. But I'm aware too that we don't need to now feel like we need to buy all the things. Most of the things I often say that help you vibrate higher are free. Going out in nature raises your vibration. Dancing raises your vibration. Soaking in a bath raises your vibration. Movement, like
Laughing.
laughing. Yeah, I have a course called Ritualize Your Joy. That's it. Like turning on music. If we listen to music that we grew up on, the music from your youth, it cures depression. It elevates your mood. It helps with moodiness. So there's so many things that we can do. I often say emotion, no, motion moves emotion. There we go. So when we think about somatic illness and somatic symptoms, um, most of that is psychosomatic and psycho-emotional, meaning that whatever we experience, whatever we're feeling, can turn into physical symptoms and physical illnesses in the body. And sometimes they're so much so that doctors can't diagnose them. They're like mystery illnesses. But what is known and now recorded to help that is movement, mindfulness, meditation, all the free things. So don't let the hype, don't believe the hype like Public Enemy says, and just know
Yeah.
that this is just added on. I'm all for getting the beautiful things, beautifying, adorning, but let's build a foundation very strong and stay aware when you're in the algorithm and knowing that there are predators everywhere. And it's very sad and unfortunate, but just protect yourself in your energy field. And even so, like, even if you're around healers and people that you feel like they're kind of draining me money wise.
Or it's a performance.
There's a lot of performance going on. Absolutely. We have to know that. And this is why I say, being in tune with yourself as a foundation, it strengthens your intuition, discernment when you're out here navigating the algorithm, navigating the internet, and navigating yourself in these spiritual communities and these healing spaces that'll make you feel like, and at the end of the day, I'm a business. We do make an income from what we do, but it should not be out of integrity for the human soul. It just should not be out of integrity. Yeah. So just keep honest.
So how did you come to make that decision? Because I've heard you in different interviews say that as you were looking to heal for yourself, you started
Yeah.
to look for and create tools to help you through that healing, on your own, but also with the help of mentors.
Yeah.
And then you realized, and then you start to create, blog about it and write these things down, really thinking, how can I help myself? But then you made a decision to share.
Yeah.
And then you also realize, like, okay, I can't just give this knowledge away.
Right.
Right?
I
So
was,
how did you come to the decision?
yeah, it took a lot of work. That was definitely a entrepreneurial liminal space for me because I was so hyped that I was healing, and it started with me healing myself and really doing the work. And then other people started to take notice, like, well, can you give us a recipe or can you tell us what you did? And so I started to write about it, blog about it. And then it just started to take off from there. And then I started to do even consultations. I was giving away so much free information for about maybe 7 years. Like, it was real. Now, please, it does not have to be this long for anyone else, but it just took me this long to figure my things out. In 2018, I took it on as, okay, Most High, I'm going to say yes to this path. And as soon as I did, I was nervous. I took my book about the night before at midnight, pressing launch on my website. I was like, no, because I was so nervous. Like, who's going to come? Who's going to show up? Who's going to, purchase classes for me? Who's going to join me? I told my daughter, who's my creative assistant, and one of my best friends, they were there supporting me. Excuse me. And he said, let me just hydrate.
Take your time.
So I was going to say, no, and as a creative, I was like, there's a few other things I can tweak to make the site perfect. They were like, in so many words, comedically, they let me know, like, if you do not press send, it's going to be a problem. Like, we are here to be your reinforcers, like I always talk about. We're your reinforcers. You're going to get this out to the world. So I had a support team around me to really, lovingly nudge me into, like they say, my greatness. Like, who is going to nudge you into your greatness, into your next level? Um, give people the role to be your accountability partners. Because when it does come from being an amateur to a pro, there's a book by Stephen Pressfield, even that I read at that time. It's called Turning Pro. And it just makes a huge difference in the mentality of like, no, I'm a professional now. And once I really shifted into that, which helped me create the website, but it continued to move through me when I was still not feeling completely qualified to do this work. And I had training, I had become
Mhm.
certified by now.
Mhm.
And you don't need all that. You even that, like, there's just some things that we have ancestrally that pass down to us that just is our gift, our thing to teach in the world. So I want to be clear about that because everything is so institutionalized now. Where you have to have a certificate, you have to have this. Um, that's yeah. And I know we talked about this in our conversation.
Yeah, well, that's actually the next thing. I'm curious to know a little bit about the reaction
Yeah,
um, when you walk into the spaces where people are expecting, more of those markers, those certificates, etc.
yeah,
Were you made to feel like um, less important before you even had your qu- quote unquote qualifications? The traditional ancestral stuff is so marginalized in our current society and
yeah.
cultures in Western,
Right,
let's say in North America and Western
right.
societies. So,
Absolutely.
how did you push through
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it was just that, the awareness. And yeah, there were a few times when, and it doesn't happen now. So that's why I'm so glad of the growth that we've come to as a world, because they'd be like, well, what are your qualifications? Where did you study? And I remember at the time, this is even before I was studying, and I was like, trying to get into certain circles for teaching. And, but in my spirit, I was like, I don't need a qualification for this. It just is what it
Mhm.
is. I just know this information. And I just, it didn't feel right with my spirit. And I remember that. And I remember at this time, I didn't know what type of certification I was going to get. But I was like, I need to go get training. I was looking at nutrition. I was looking at all kinds of Reiki, all around the board. And at the time, a lot of it didn't resonate with what I was into. But once I did, so I just took my time. And once I did um, come across like a type of teaching that resonated with what I was feeling, like the vibration, energy, all that spiritual path. I took the training, absolutely. But now what I do is, whether I had that or not, and nowadays, like, I never talk about the certification ever. It's not even on my website, only because uh,
Yeah.
what I do, that was just like icing on the cake. Because even when I was in there, I'm like, yes, it was reminding me of stuff I already knew. I saw my grandmothers do, and it just further reiterated what I thought. Now, I do want to say, if you're looking to do counseling and therapy, anything in like a holistic practitioner, you do need a certification for all of those things. But if it's just like consulting and creative direction, writing, being a creative, a spiritual creative, all of this, like helping people on their spiritual path, you don't need any of that for that. So it's just a matter of personal preference. Personal preference is always, and I also would say, discernment, right? Like I took things on my path that even qualified me for this that weren't traditional. Like, coming up, I have photography. I took photography classes. I took writing classes as a young person. So there was even things in my past
Mhm.
that qualified me for what I do now that took me a while to even connect the dots and realize. So I would say you may be even more qualified at this moment than you realize.
Yeah. Um, so many thoughts racing through my head. I want to get a time check because we want to make sure that we get questions. So I'm waiting for somebody to just tell me roughly how much time. I'm trying to figure out the clock. I think we have about 15 minutes before we take questions. About 20 minutes. So Layla, I as I try to research as much as I could and read through and listen to your work and conversations that you have on podcasts and in the media, I can't say that I blatantly see the word black or black community or black women or black trauma, etc.
Yeah.
However, the aesthetic feels like it's coming from
Yeah.
an African space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder if if it's intentional or if it's just like I'm just drawn to this stuff or what's happening there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just for me, it's just life. I grew up just having African American parents and being a younger person exposed to African arts and African culture. I used to spend a lot of time in the Harambe Center here in Los Angeles as a teen, like making, remember the 90s, like the African medallions and working at the African Mart.
Right?
I miss that
The
time.
beads,
The
our
beads,
hats.
the hats, yes. I miss those times. And then,
Me
as
too.
it was such a good era. Like it really was. It was so full of culture, heritage, and then as I continued to grow, like I was the vice president of our Black Student Union, also part of the Junior NAACP, and then as I in my own doing, I joined the Nation of Islam as a young person in my early 20s, and so I've been doing this work in different ways, in different eras. And so whatever you see that's kind of sparked, like I have African mask, African art just all around me, it's just I immerse myself daily. And then so my offering is showing up as a byproduct of this culture, of this heritage. And I'm of mixed heritage as well. My mother is Spanish, her family's from Spain. And it's funny because I remember growing up, my mother would be like, well, you don't really do a lot with the Spanish side. Like, you need to learn and dig into us too.
Mm,
But it was just something, being a physical, visible looking Black woman, it's different in the world. And I had to let her see that. Like, I don't feel like a Spanish woman in the world. I feel so more like a Black woman. And so I had to use that.
right.
My experiences, honestly, are based on what I appear to be in the world, like how I'm seen, perceived, even in this wellness space. So everything that I do is based off of just this heritage that has been in me deeply, even in the African American church culture. Growing up in that, I put a lot of that into the way it's just embedded in me. The way I teach sometimes, the way I show up, even my humor. I have like this church humor that comes out of me sometimes when I'm teaching. And I think that that's important to show that we don't always have to use these terms in order to show up because we are showing up, we're doing the work. And what I found a lot of times when the movements happen, it's like, what are we, even though we take on the titles, we take on all of this, what are we doing outside of the movement, like on the everyday life? Where are you putting your focus, your energy? How is your work helping people to get better? And that's really where I choose. I choose to sit at that intersection of like whether there's a movement, whether there's a boycott, whether we are, whatever we're doing, I'm solid. I'm going to be here doing this work. And this work is to allow us to vibrate higher. And I think just being a Black woman and strategically like coming out of my comfort zone, and it was very intentional being a woman in this space when it's a lot of white women, being real, coming up, having the conversations like I'm having with you in a lot of different spaces of white women, of privilege, of allyship, teaching, and just holding space so other Black women could know what's possible for them as well. Yeah. So I
Hmm.
hope I
And I
answered.
wonder also yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder if there's that additional pressure, tension as you share your teachings with the broader communities, but then thinking about perhaps some of the more sensitive aspects of what Black communities are living, the kind of trauma people um, are as you say, journeying with through life. I
Yeah.
wonder if that's always sort of conscious in the back of your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It has to be because this is my experience when I step out of my home. I have I have a son who is beautiful, beautifully melanated, heavily melanated chocolate child. I have others. I have to have these conversations with them. And then even my beloved, he does a lot of wellness work with the African American community. And so these are conversations that we're continually having in our home almost on a daily basis. My mother-in-law is Queen
Mm.
of Food. She does the wellness work of African American women with Sacred Woman, and I'm one of the leadership there in her community. So I'm immersed in the culture on a daily basis, and we're always like, how can we take the work that we're doing as representatives of our people and help our people thrive higher, and just to let them know that in the midst of in the midst of whatever, if you feel like you're fighting for your rights, if you feel like you're healing for your rights, like whatever you, because some people are healing through this time, some people are fighting through this time, and it's all necessary. We all have a role to play, but our kind of angle, especially my angle, is I will hold space to show you how to take care of yourself in the midst of that. Because we have to understand that, for one, we are sovereign beings and we carry a lot of ancestral trauma, ancestral pain in our DNA, in our genome. And so I teach a lot about that, about turning towards the ancestors. Not only do we inherit their nose, and there's memory there. Our bodies know how to, through memory, cell memory, create great grandmother's nose and eyes and lips and hair. But it also takes on the physical, but also the psycho emotional. And so this is why some people have
Yeah.
to see towards depression, towards strength, or towards core courage. So just knowing who you are, what ancestors are working through you, and then doing the thing to heal the ancestral line. Because when you heal yourself, you're healing your bloodline as well. And so these are the conversations that I have. And it's interesting. My latest teaching at the Vibrate Higher Daily School, we talked about our ancestral healing, and ritualizing your joy, not just for yourself, but you're a future ancestor. So learning how to break that generational pain, and victimhood, because like myself, even though these things were done to me, that I had to root in my own power at some point in order to take me out of that reality and onto a new timeline. So chapter one in my book says she remembered who she was and the game changed. And I had to remember who I am. And one thing that I think is important for us as African Americans is to know that beyond our color, even, that we are energy beings. We are these spiritual, energetic beings. What do we do with that as who we visibly appear on the planet? How do we use this energy working for us as a collective and as an individual to help us further whatever our goals are as who we have incarnated as African beautiful melanated people? How do we use this energy? Because when you look at like the Chinese culture, they have all these different practices, qigong, and all these things where they're harnessing energy and they're able to put it into the work as a society, as a culture. And we have the same thing. As we know, we're very talented, gifted, strong people, but to be intentional about that and learn how to use it. Again, like I just say my work is important in that way, so that you learn how to work with this force that is in you, as a beautiful melanated person.
Yeah.
But
And
beyond me, many people teaching it
I'm thinking
in
else.
different ways.
What's
Yeah.
that?
I say even beyond me though. I mentioned my work, but it's around. There's many different people like that you can find that are teaching you how to work with what you are and who you are as far as energetic beings. Yeah.
It makes me think of, and you touched on this a bit about, you said some of us are healing through this time and some of us are fighting. Some of us are doing both or trying to do both. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I wonder, what is the impact, or how important is it for, as a community, as communities of Black people or people trying to address oppressive regimes or suppressive regimes or institutional s- racism or systemic racism, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If we're trying to heal and we're trying to vibrate higher, what is how do we impact, how do we bring that to some of these social justice movements and some of this political movements, especially to our leaders? We've been talking about people performing
Yeah.
as wellness leaders. People are also performing as leaders in
Yeah.
social justice.
Absolutely.
So how do we marry those things to
Yeah.
be able to have a healthier community and move towards higher vibration in those spaces as well?
Yeah, it absolutely becomes in being intentional with the leadership. It all starts with the leadership, right? The whole system has to have leadership in place that is resonating with your higher intentions, right? So every movement may not be for you, and you may, and I always say, like, explore the movements. Like, there's a part to play. So what you sometimes performance can also look like ourselves. Just because we see it on
Mm.
Instagram, we like run out to be on the front lines, and that might not be what resonates with you the most. You may be a writer. We need writers. We need scientists. We need people in the medical facilities, because we know Black women are more susceptible to poor treatment in the medical facility. So it's almost remembering
We need
that
teachers.
we need teachers, and we need Black Black male teachers in particular, because there's
Yeah.
not enough of that. Usually we see the male coaches that are African American, Black, BIPOC, but not enough male. So understand that that's also the movement too. That's also part of the work, is going to school. If you want to go to college, teaching your children to be a scientist, get into agriculture, get into pain, get into physics, like all the different genres, because you can't just box us into always showing up at boycotts. Like, we have to be able
To
to
fight. Yeah.
infiltrate. We fight other ways. Like, you're fighting, you're on the front lines when you're being that Black teacher in the classroom, when you're being that Black scientist, when you're at the table talking about agriculture, soil, the whole ecosystem, the environmental situation. We have to be all around, and we have to now spread out. But what we do collectively together, again, is heal and thrive, and make sure that as leaders, that we're healing, that we're doing the work, because the system is going to go in the direction of the leader. And when you think about, like, I've worked for bosses before who are completely just like so low vibrational, and everyone's tiptoeing around and can't say anything. And other places, you're completely free to be the most creative person. So just knowing that leadership is number one. Whether you're a leader, do the work to vibrate higher, to honor those around you as energetic beings, so that way you're not projecting any. Because sometimes leadership can project their fears, and a good leader is not going to do that. A good
Right.
leader is going to sit with you and say,
Right.
"How can we figure this out?" Versus projecting to you fear, hate, all those things. How can we move forward? And we've seen throughout history some of our greatest become elders, and they're bitter, they're angry, and bless their hearts, because they just didn't have the self care, they didn't have the things to decompress. And our generation has that now, so we have to absolutely take advantage. Erica Huggins, which was a leader in the Black Panther Party during the Black Liberation Movement, she said it. Ruby Sales, who was an instrumental part of the Civil Rights Movement, have both said in their own language that had they had self care, they wouldn't have dismantled so easy, and they would have gone even further. The Black Panther Party was burnt out. They didn't have self care. And Erica, now to this day, she teaches yoga. She's a Zen master. She's teaching this wellness work around. So it's so important to remember that part of your empowerment as a leader, and in any type of group of people who are on the front lines, is to take care of yourself first. That way, your thoughts are clear, your energy is clear, you're not projecting any of the lower things that happen to you. You're able to kind of wash those out of you, and they don't stick. And if they stick, again, it turns into that somatic symptom, somatic stress. And over time, it almost like it calcifies you, it makes you hard. And so we want to stay
Yeah.
pliable and soft and strong in that way. Yeah.
I want to go back to the initial decision. Like when we decide an individual that I'm ready to heal whatever I need to heal in my life. I'm ready to transform.
Yeah.
Um, and all the things that we talked about, living within community, living within society, living within constructs and culture that pushes against so much of the goals that people like yourself are trying to achieve and share.
Yeah.
So when we get to that first step and we make that decision that we're ready to transform and grow towards vibrating higher, which is, as you say, continuous, it's not like an end game.
Right. Right.
What's the next step?
Yeah, I absolutely say just living in awareness, vibrational awareness. And this looks like your atmosphere, right? Your atmosphere at any particular time, your environment is the garden you're growing in. So now it's time to bring that awareness closer in to say, who's around me while I'm healing, while I'm growing, while I'm choosing this path? What is in my home? Maybe it causes you to declutter your home, your life, your relationships, your refrigerator, your car, and your algorithm. Like you, because what you see around you is affecting your growth, whether you realize it or not. This is like a beautiful flower doing its thing. It's doing its job. The garden is beautiful. But if there's no fence around the garden, badgers and all kind of things can come into the garden. So put the boundary around your garden. That's your environment, and it's so important because now you can control. You have more of a control. Of course, we don't have sovereign control, but we have more control over the things that happen into our lives or that enter into our lives, and that's so important when we're going forward. A lot of times, if we don't have those boundaries, the winds of life, friendships, relationships, things that we come across on social media can blow us off our center. And sometimes all it takes is one text, one phone call, one page, one something on the Explorer page, and you're feeling off. But to journey in grace with yourself with this work, because again, if you're not going to get it right every day, again, this is Earth School, and just know that you're growing through your life. It's all about growing. That's why the work is called Vibrate Higher Daily, because wherever you find yourself at that particular day, that particular time, you can vibrate higher from there. And it doesn't have to look like the level that you were at, like maybe last month. You're like, I was at all-time high, but it's okay. There's an ebb and flow, and this is just the universe that we live in. And the thing about vibration, it oscillates. So meaning that it's like a wave pattern. There's high, low, high, low. So on an atomic level, this is who you are. So don't think it's strange when you're high and low. Just by all means, do the things that help you when you are low to vibrate higher, to get back to that high wave. And this also looks like energy input and output. We spend many of our days outputting. And so make sure that the input is strong, and you'll know what that is. Vibrating higher, whether you're feeling you're thriving, you're rested, and find the things that help you grow. And things that also are aids to help you grow are like meditation music, binaural music, what else? Books, movement. These are all things that help you keep a solid and strong energy field. They're creating energy around you. So they help strengthen you as well. So implement things, bring things in that help you strengthen, and then remove whatever it is that takes away from your strength, whether it's on your, like, clean, I would say, um, um, detoxify your algorithm, clean up your algorithm, because that's important as well. And then one last note on that is just to keep in mind that as vibrational beings, as we're in the world, what we're tied to, what we're allowing into the eye gate, the ear gate, is affecting our subconscious mind. So the more low vibrational entertainment, media, you'll think it's entertainment, but at the same time, your subconscious mind is taking it as you want more of this in your life. It doesn't not care if it's on the algorithm or in real physical time. It's like, this is what you want, so I'm going to bring more in. And you're a magnetic being. So the more that you clean up your algorithm, have it to where people inspire you. It's inspiring things, people who are your icons, who are doing the type of work that you see yourself doing, or living, having the family, whatever it is, the health, the wellness. See more of that, and your subconscious mind is going to attract more of that in, and then you will begin to feel like it's possible for you. And the more that you have the feeling of something higher vibrational being possible, that feeling is what makes it magnetized to you even quicker than just saying, I can have it. You have to feel worthy of it.
Yes.
And last point, I keep saying last point. Last point is like,
yeah. No, go ahead.
When you see these things, when you see these things, don't feel envious if you see anyone having something that you want to have. Just say, blessings, this is amazing. I can have that too. Because that blessing is what brings it into your life as well. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm so happy that you did add that at the end, because it's so easy to look to the left or look to the right and think that somehow someone's got it going better, and not realize that you are where you need to be at this present time. And as long as you keep moving forward, right?
Yeah, just keep
You'll
moving
get there.
forward, knowing that I'm worthy. Like that self-worth is so important in magnetizing things to you. And if you think about it, like if you think that you're not worthy of a healthy relationship, you'll keep attracting the person who is mirroring that. Even friendships, right? So it definitely takes that. It takes that. And again, journey and grace through all of this work by all means, please, because this is a lot of work. It's coming home to yourself and really getting to know who you are. There's a Zen Buddhist priest,
Mhm.
Thich Nhat Hanh, and his words just comfort my soul all the time. But he says, I have arrived. I am home. I am no longer running from myself. And when you can get to that place, it's like no matter what I arrive home to, whoever I am at that particular time when I arrive home, I'm loving myself through this. I'm going to journey in grace and I'm going to vibrate higher. And that is just such beautiful words of comfort because as Black people, we're taught we always have to be strong and we always have to have it together and have all the solutions. No, we don't. We are allowed to grow, to journey in grace, and to take our time doing this work. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so I'm really, really grateful to have this opportunity to exchange with you. Like, I
Oh,
think
likewise.
I think the team at Never Was Average, um, in conversation with me about this event and all the events for the month, had said we really want to move beyond inspiring people, but empower people. As we've seen around the world, we've all gone through this challenging year, the virus of the pandemic,
Yeah,
but also the virus of racism and and inequalities.
yeah, right, right.
And they really thought through our conversation in particular. And I'm just so grateful that they chose me to talk to you today.
Oh,
Because
same.
I personally really benefit from your work.
Mm.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you,
I think
Nantali.
we have time now for some questions. All right.
Mhm.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing, Kimberly. Kimberly P wants to know, who did you just quote regarding, and
Coming home.
I'm looking for the last word there, because
Coming
we've got
home.
some really cool technology and setup
It was
regarding coming home.
yes, it was Thich Nhat Hanh, and his name is
All right.
it's a Vietnamese spelling. It's T I. I'll give you the first name. It's a super long, but Thich. Thich Nhat Hanh.
Okay.
T I C H
THCH
T H
and
THIC and then NAHT and then
NAHT. Perfect.
HANA.
THICNAHT.
Someone just put it in the chat. Thank you, Dana.
We'll make somebody put in the chat. Perfect. And I'm sure we'll definitely share out some of the things that you shared as well in social after all of this. Some of the
Yes.
tools, obviously, where to find more of your work.
Mm.
So Rowan asks, to hear some of your thoughts on self-care and community care. So collaborative care via the village, Rowan says, is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely. And what comes to mind right away, Rowan, with that is remembering my grandmothers when they would do community outreach. And one way in particular maybe was Sunday dinners after church. Everyone would get together. The church mothers would be cooking, cooking meals, and children are running around, and the men are moving chairs, and just getting everything situated. Just remembering these visions of we come from women who did this, we come from men who did this, and to remember that physical proximity is so important when the world can open up. And if you can't do it now, right, but just to create some type of space where you're sharing food, you're sharing maybe music together. You're just like take all the concepts of the spiritual community, and we can apply those across the board. Spiritual community has
Mhm.
music, we have dancing, we have singing, we have breaking bread together, and that's so important as a village to have these symbols because they're rituals. They're beautiful rituals that we're doing. but prayer work, and even like giving you a few starters. A great one could be creating meditation time together, a creative meditation cipher circle that you meet somewhere online once a week, once a month, however that looks for you. Someone holding that, sharing time and space, watching documentaries together. Amazon Prime has watch parties where you can watch films together. Zoom, I use Zoom a lot to do this, watching films together on Zoom. Creating also time when, and this is what I do in my personal sister circles. We do journaling, we do praying, we do yoga together, and then we also do massage where you go and massage the sisters who are in the circle. So we do that kind of thing. So it's, if you feel comfortable and if it's COVID friendly for you now to be around anyone else, and you know that, but to create these healing circles, but song, dance, music, affection, family affection is important. It's important to not just know that we can text each other, but it's so important to build these rituals and turn back to older generations that have come and gone to leave us a trail. What do you call it? Leave us a path. Yeah, leave us a path.
Yes. And then we continue that path
Yeah,
for the children that we are already raising, and
absolutely.
and perhaps the future children that we will raise, and rate children of our own blood or not,
Or not.
right?
Absolutely. And if I can say, and one a community way of that is to welcome children in, whether they're yours or not. African spirituality is big on how we treat children. A lot of times in Western culture, children are thought to be seen and not heard, and sit down and they have no say so. Or the whole thing of like, I don't like children. I hear a lot of people say that, but part of your spiritual growth is to accept children, because you are an elder, and as an elder, you have a role. You have a calling now to hold space for this young person who can be your teacher as well, but you can guide them through kindness, compassion, teaching them how sitting and have a conversation with them, taking them on a walk, like just doing the things as an elder mentor. Is important. Maybe you're with a community member and their child is acting out or crying and fussing. A mama is frustrated. Take the baby in your arms. Let's go for a walk. Let's give mama a break. Just those community things that we can do. Those little nuances mean so much, and they really build the circle even stronger.
We're going to end it there. And I think that's like the most important point. The rest of the day, in fact, our local healers, people who are doing the work here in Montreal, who are also going to exchange. So it's great that you've kind of set the tone
Oh,
for the
awesome.
rest of the day, and support ideas that people here are already doing on the ground. So Layla, I wish you a really, really blessed and beautiful Sunday. I know it's still early in LA. Thank you again from all of us here in Montreal, from the Phi Center, Never Was Average, Black History Month Roundtable, and anybody who tuned in to this. Merci.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you for having me. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for Never Was Average, the Phi Center. Just thank you, everyone. I'm so excited just to see where this. I don't know if I'll see, but I'll feel it. I'm sending you all love and light, and hoping that any of this information was helpful. And thank you so much.